right, so for our first AGM conclusion dialogue, interracial relationships. um, you good? We'll start with Yana on this one. We'll start with our queen, because we've had this conversation before. So, where do you stand on interracial relationships?
Personally, I don't see a problem with them. I feel like I can see a disconnect for different aspects of the relationship. However, to just be full fledged against them, absolutely not. I like mixed individuals. That's not because I have a problem with fully black, fully white, fully Mexican, fully anything. It's just what I find visually appealing, what I'm drawn to, whatever. It's like I prefer or have preferred in the past, I should better say, because I'm not as picky.
Right.
But I have preferred in the past, like, mixed individuals, whether it's mixed with black or otherwise, but I prefer if they're mixed with black. But it's just harder with interracial relationships sometimes, just with understanding different viewpoints.
Right.
Which I can understand that being a disconnect. However, I don't think it's something that can be discounted. I do understand where people are coming from, where they're like, support black love and black men being with black women.
That's me.
Stereotypes that go with it. To each his own. I understand. However, I don't think we should limit ourselves either. I don't think that you have to be buckled down into this role or this relationship with this type of person, because ultimately it's not helping anything get better. In a way, interracial relationships give the chance to expose a different race as a black person, expose them and give them the understanding needed to better navigate and understand our experiences. I'm not saying that they're entitled to that, but if you're in love with somebody who is outside of your race, why rob them of that experience of loving you or you loving them because you don't want to try to give them the insight of what it takes to be in our skin?
Right.
That's not fair to an extent.
Where you stand on this?
I can expand later more. But what do you think, D?
I'm a proponent of black love for sure. Mostly because of like slavery and all the shit that's happened to us. I feel like
how mixed breeds came about.
Well, not even that. Just I feel like with white people, they put so much effort into separating us. Male and female,
right?
Making us hate our skin, our lips, our features, and just set so much dysfunction in our communities that when you have a black man and a black woman, in spite of all that, come together and have a functional union, it's like, yo, I want this to work, and they both decide to make it work and actually work to make it work. I feel like that's really powerful and poetic. I'm not really mad at interracial relationships. I do see like there's a difference between social media and the real world, but I do see like on social media a lot more people like, oh, you should try white guys or something like that. But men is men no matter what the color is. But
right.
I'm for black on black love for sure.
To piggyback off that real quick, I feel like that's another thing too, is that when we hear interracial dating, we hear black and white dating. That's so close-minded. Like, that's such a closed box. Like,
oh no, I'd be thinking about everybody.
I'm saying in general. Think about it. If we hear anybody wants to hear interracial dating, your first picture and visualization would be black and white person,
right.
Whether it's black male, white female, white male, black female, regardless, it's gonna be that stereotype. That's the first thing that hits your mind because of pop culture, because of movies, because of stigmas, stereotypes, whatever you want to call it,
and because it's a controversial topic in the black community.
I feel like I do understand where Dee's coming from. It is powerful. It is beautiful. It is poetic. And I'm not saying that it has to just... That's why I made that distinction that interracial isn't just black and white. Because I don't feel like me being okay or down for it is me. I don't want it to be misconstrued or anybody to feel like that means, oh yeah, black and white, that's the way to go. Like, absolutely not. That's weird, first of all. But I'm Indian.
Okay.
along with African Americans. So I look at things like that. If I talk to
Right.
an all Indian dude, he's not gonna be black. He's not gonna experience or understand my experiences.
Mm-hmm.
Same as if I was talking to a Latino of any other South American country outside of Mexico
Right.
or anything of the sort. It's like it's not gonna be the same. I don't feel like people should get shunned for it. I do understand the lack of instant acceptance based on how African Americans have been treated and where mixed breeds have come from with being
Right.
raped by, by slave masters and things of that nature. Sure. However, I just don't feel like that's so limiting to the human experience. I feel like you can learn so much from anybody, and yeah, it's empowering. However, why limit ourselves to not even? I'm not saying you got to get married to somebody outside of your race. I'm not saying you got to have a kid with somebody outside of your race. But to be closed off to even experiencing a good moment with somebody outside of your race is so limiting for your human experience as you being the one having this one life as you, unless you believe in reincarnation. Otherwise, you have one life as you. I have one life as Monogram. Why am I going to stop myself from experiencing, learning different aspects of life, learning about different insights on different cultures or experiences of other people? Why would I limit myself to understanding different perspectives because I want this idea to work out?
Yeah. On that note, I'm not against experience and
Right.
women of different ethnicities. That's for sure. But like I said, just if I sit down and want to build a family, it's gonna be a black woman.
Yeah, I mean, where I'm at with it is like I'm with you basically. Like I just simply believe in black love, like putting it simply put, like and I've had friends like kind of get at me and say the same thing that you just said, where they're like, like why are you limiting yourself? Why are you robbing yourself? Like what if you do like fall in love with some white girl or Hispanic or anything else? Like so, like if you found love with a person like that, like you would just not pursue it, because you're waiting on a black woman. And my answer is yes, I would, rob myself for that because like I'm thinking of a bigger picture of a message that I personally want to send, and I want to, send the notion that black love exists, and it doesn't have to be toxic. It doesn't have to be dysfunctional, because that's a lot of what we see too. I see, and I've made posts like this that you probably seen where I said if you treat black women like spit, like you're not pro-black. Like I don't care about you, being with your own race if all you do is you dogging out your own, you beating on your own, you not financially supporting your own or emotionally being there for your own. Like so I could care less about that in that aspect. But I just know for me personally, and who I want raising my kids is a black woman, because they can understand my child more than anybody else can, in my opinion, in my assessment, because again, nothing's like actually going through it. I don't care how many black people you've been with, how many black people you grew up around, like you still don't face the same challenges that we face every day. So I just prefer my child to grow up in a two-parent, black household, just personally,
I don't
for that
think
reason.
nothing wrong with that. However, I feel like when you're speaking on that, and that's not just you, but a lot of people who are into monogamy, is that they're looking for their next wife, knowing good and damn well they're not ready for a wife or a family or to settle down or have a kid. It's one thing I feel personally, based off of what you're saying, to want a wife, somebody to raise your kid who is black, a black woman, and etc. That doesn't mean you can't date before then. Unless you're dating to marry, that's different. But you can still experience this insight, this experience, this different walk in a different park, and not have to settle down. You don't have to settle with anybody.
I don't trust. Another thing is I don't trust other races either. Like a lot of them, I don't feel genuinely care for black people. I think a lot of them just have like a fetish, like black people in their different ways. So I don't trust a lot of them.
As far as interracial relationships and even being a black woman and being a dancer, I've been fetishized before. Absolutely, that's almost. I was working at a white club, so that was part of the job that made it make sense. Sure, getting paid for that. However, being fetishized is, I won't say it's slightly different, and you should be able to tell to an extent the intentions of the person that is interested in you.
But how many times have you seen like a video or something though, like on social media or in the news where they talking about like some like black wife who's like surprised, like, oh my gosh, like my husband's a racist. I would have never guessed, or I didn't know. Like, sure. I be thinking that, like, how the hell didn't you know that?
Oblivious, because think about it. People choose to acknowledge what they want to acknowledge. You can be sit there.
That's true.
No, think about even traumatic situations. A parent, for example, if a parent is with, and I'm just talking a hypothetical situation that I've seen in pop culture movies, whatever. For example, woman has a new boyfriend, husband, whatever, but she has kids. The kid gets traumatized by that new individual. Okay. You choose to look at the attributes and what's good about your partner as opposed to believing your child because you're in denial and you can't stand the thought that they will even be capable of doing that.
Right.
That comes up more often than not. Same with abusive relationships. Mm-hmm. Same with other traumatic situations, but that comes up a lot is the denial of it all. It's one thing to be intellectual and pick up on the fact, okay, well, this person is doing these certain traits. That's letting me know that they're definitely fetishizing their experience with me, as opposed to looking at me for who I am as a person. If you're aware enough, if you choose to look for those attributes to depict or determine whether or not that's what your relationship is, because some people don't want to look that deep into it. They just want to enjoy the moment, which is fair enough. But if you choose to look at that, you'll be able to pick up on that. Don't get me wrong. There's the outliers of people who are exceptionally manipulative, exceptionally good at hiding their undercover racism or whatever, exceptionally good at masking their fetishes.
Right.
Don't get me wrong, but, and that's not me victim shaming or anything. I'm just looking at people in general. People choose to be in denial about certain things as opposed to shine light on it and acknowledge the fact that they might have to alter what they want to believe to fit what the reality of the situation is.
I mean, and another thing is too, like, you know, me being an advocate for black women the way that I am, we have to be real as well. Like, there's a lot of black women who feel the same way I do or say they feel the same way that I do. So, like, how serious do y'all think black women would take me for me to say, like, oh, yeah, I love the ground black women, you know, walk on and I worship black women? No, I could say all of that, but then I got a white girl or Hispanic or some other foreign race, like, you know, on the side of me, but yet I'm saying like, oh yeah, I still love y'all. It's like, no, that doesn't mean I'm not genuine, but it's just a fight I'd rather not, you know what I mean? Like, I'm gonna pick my battles, and it's not a road I'm willing to go down. I'm gonna tell y'all I love y'all because I do, and I'm gonna, you know, prove it by having it on the side of me and treating her like the queen that I feel she is.
I do understand that. I just feel like to an extent, people are too internalize everything. Like, why are you so concerned about whether it's pop culture and celebrities? Why are you concerned about what the next human is doing with their personal life? Why do you care so much about who they fucking on? But
that's both sides because black women don't like when they see a successful good black man with another race, and it's like, we got to deal with, you know, whatever caliber of niggas, and then here we go see a good one and he's with something else outside of him.
Toxic black females who doing the same thing, wondering why they not wanted for different things, wondering why certain behavior is expected out of them, wondering why, for example, I've had dudes openly be like, oh, I'm so, you know, like you said, pro-black, about black love, about this, about that. But when you mad because you don't want to acknowledge whatever you don't want to take accountability or acknowledge whatever you have going on that's not right for this situation, you gonna disrespect me and some more stuff.
Right.
But you still worship black women, like you said, that's contradictory as fuck. But it's one thing to blatantly disrespect, it's another if what you find interesting. I do understand what you're saying. I don't feel like that's every situation.
And by the way, I'm not somebody who, like, you know, talks down on everybody every black person I see that's with another race. I'm not a fan of it. I'll be real. I'm not a fan of it. I do, like, there's nothing like me seeing like black love. So I'm not a fan when I see, especially like when I think somebody is with another race due to self-hatred because they're perpetuating that toward their people. And I look at little stuff to make sure, like, man, are you really into this person because you into this person, or you know what I'm saying, are you just like doing this to shun your people and talk about like how you don't f with how niggas are, you don't f with how our women are. Like I'm big on
that I have a problem with, and then I don't really have a problem with. I mean, I ain't gonna lie, as a black man, if I see like a especially a fine black woman, like,
for sure. I already know where you're going with this.
Like I'll be like, come on, man, I've seen it in person. I'm like, come on, you could like probably lift this nigga over your head, like what you doing?
Right.
But it don't really bother me to the point where I'm like, laying in bed at night, just awake, just
and
mad.
As a black woman, I will say, like, it took. I'm 23 right now. Growing up in Lancaster for a good amount of time, best believe. By the time I got to college, I did not fuck with black dudes. Absolutely not. I did not like the idea that, and I was always reasonable, so I understood that I am mostly referring to the black males in my area of Lancaster, where it's like they're focusing on gangbanging, partying, using guns. I never went to parties because that was fucking with clothes on the floor. That doesn't appeal to me. Why would I want to do that? I didn't deal with dudes because they're ignorant, because they're not trying to get a better education. They're not trying to learn more about anything. They're just trying to be in the streets, be the next rapper, even though they can't pronounce or understand or articulate or define half the words they try to use, or different things like that. So by the time I got to college and I started at BSU, I'm part of one of like 5 to 6 people who started BSU at my college for the first time in over 60 years ever. Oh, wow. We're the first people who ever made a black student union on that campus.
Okay.
And that was something that I really had to break out of my shell, where it's like, damn, I gotta go to the football players in my dorms and advertise to them to come to the BSU meetings and stuff, when before it's like I didn't want to be around in the certain dorm where the football players and the majority black niggas were, because I didn't want to get harassed or hit on.
Right.
I wasn't okay with that, so I didn't have nothing to worry about. However, it's the matter of like knowing certain things. Being in BSU helped me break out of that shell of like, okay, and it's not all bad. It's not coming across intelligent men in our culture makes it a lot better. Not being surrounded or just being surrounded by people who are perpetuating all the negative stereotypes of who we are definitely helped. I definitely can say honestly I was a colorist at a point. Like, absolutely.
I mean,
however,
I had to,
anymore.
but that's like, just a point where we have to realize, like, what circles we're hanging around. Because when I moved to Antelope Valley when I was 18 years old, I dealt with a lot of that as well with certain black women. Like, that was my first time being like cheated on. It was a black woman. So, I definitely had my moments where I had to stop and realize, like, you know what, like, I have to think about the circle I'm in, like the type of niggas I'm around, the type of parties I'm going to. I'm like, I'm around these type of people. I can't be surprised at the results. And once I started changing my surroundings, it changed the surroundings of the women I dealt with. There's always going to be issues in relationships, but the level, like with what as extreme as you were talking about and as extreme as I'm talking about, that really does depend on like, what we're surrounding ourselves with and who we're willing to tolerate in our lives. Because usually, I know it's cliche, the birds of a feather, like that's real slick.
I hear that. Like, I do feel like I have learned and seen the way that can be circumstantial sometimes, in a sense. Like, I can see how that can be, how do I put it, taken out of context in a way. Because you can be, I do definitely agree with that to an extent, but there are situations where it's like, all right, you're around this group of people, or you're allowing yourself to be around this group of people. For me personally, that went from me being birds of a feather, or me being closed off to not wanting to be around them, to me being open to even getting to know this side of our people. The side that's not where I'm at, that's not whitewashed, that's not, so into school or vocabulary or whatever it may be.
Right.
I had to break out of that closed-mindedness of they're not saying worthy, but it's like I don't want to talk to them because they're not on my level. Had to get out of that, and that took some understanding that that's not. One, it's not don't generalize. Two, you can impart different knowledge on people. Sometimes even with mental health in our community, it's not talked about. So how do we know? Of course, we're gonna go to gangs and different things because that's our support system. If we don't know that we can talk through things to make it better, then we're gonna go to other things because that's what we're know. That's what we know for sure is a good way to make a difference in release or whatever. But I digress.
No, you
but
good.
Back to the topic is like when it comes to interracial relationships, I feel like with me personally being into mixed individuals, whether it's black or white, it could be no black in it at all. It could be no white in it at all. It's just a mixture of different cultures. I can understand and be open to finding out the experience that goes with that. And I don't knock being with a black man because of that. I've yet to find a black man that I feel is what I'm looking for. I haven't found any man of any race. Yeah. That's what I'm looking for. Don't get me wrong. However, it's just like we also have to remember that just like black women do the same thing with perpetuating the negative stereotypes of being crazy, keying cars, being hoes, whatever you want to call it, how society looks at it. Same goes with black men. Same goes with Mexican men, white men, Asian men. Everybody has a stereotype for something. Ultimately, for me, I haven't found somebody that fits, that is completely like full black, that is fitting what I'm looking for.
I would say my issue with it,
but I'm not closed off to it either, is what I'm getting at.
When people try to say you'll have a better chance at a functional relationship by dating outside your race.
I've never heard that, but I find that to
That's
be definitely
I've
ridiculous.
Heard that again.
I've heard that. I have never heard that. I find that to be very ridiculous upon hearing it though. Like,
I don't whether it's coming from men or black men or coming from black women. I just don't. I don't agree with that sentiment at all.
Personally, like I don't.
But I've definitely heard it from both sides. I've heard it from people in my family. I've heard it from just out and about, from celebrities.
I mean that part in particular. That's a whole nother topic for another day.
But I see the point of view of black love being in the sense of it working and being the one that makes most sense for not only black men but black women in general. It's just the understanding. Nobody can understand a black African American point of view than a black African American. Right. Period. Or an African American, take out black, but nobody can understand unless they have that upbringing, they have that understanding of what our history contains. Even when it comes to Nigerians, other Africans, pure Africans, not African American, we are still different. We are a different type and a special type of black people that has dealt with a special type of systemic racism and a certain type of ways of how we even came here. We done got kidnapped and taken and all sorts of stuff. It's not natural.
So question: Do y'all believe that you can be in an interracial relationship and still be considered pro-black?
When I was younger, I did a book report on Frederick Douglass. I was like in the 3rd grade. And at the end of the book, it showed white fuck me. So I was like, wait. I was 8 years old. I was like, wait a minute. That just don't make sense. Yeah. Like how you got. And she wasn't even a bad white woman. She was just a white woman. And I wouldn't go as far as say that Frederick Douglass isn't pro-black anymore. But it does, like, it's like an asterisk or something like that next to your pro-blackness, because it's like, all right.
That might put my sentiments.
It's like, all right, but what's up?
That might put my sentiments.
But also on the same line, I think it's kind of touched on a little bit earlier. You also can't be pro-black and just be, dogging out black women the whole way through. Like, that's far from being pro-black too. So I wouldn't necessarily say you're not pro-black. We got to kind of define what pro-black is.
Well, I'm only asking that because, and I think me and your best friend had this exact conversation. Where I've had this conversation with many black people who have said that, and I mean you can see it everywhere. Like they feel like you can't be pro-black if you're in a racial relationship. I mean I disagree with that, but I don't think it's far off from the truth either, because again, most of the situations I see, there is some sort of self-hatred in it, of their reasoning for being with somebody else rather than just organically and naturally, like, I just fell in love with this person.
Right.
It's usually like something in there, you know what I mean? And they usually expose it at some point in time. But yeah, so for me personally, like I said, the asterisk thing, that was like a perfect analogy as far as my sentiments.
Cause I can't.
I'll let you
deny
close
the
out
word.
with what you.
Personally, I feel like as far as pro-black goes, I can see as a blanket statement where that can make sense.
Mm-hmm.
At first glance, on a very surface level, tip of the iceberg type of thing, sure. I can see where people are coming from, where it's like, oh, if you date outside your race, you're not pro-black. But at the same time, it's like, that is such a very shallow and simple way of viewing what makes pro-black and what doesn't. Your interest in another person is the only thing that makes you pro-black. Like, damn, you get your whole pro-black card revoked because you choose to be,
regardless of the work,
regardless of how it happened, regardless of the work that went in, regardless of, because don't forget,
we
I'm
also
big
gotta ask,
on
can white
everything
people be pro-black
circumstantial.
then?
Right.
Like, can white people in a white relationship be
And that's
pro-black?
what changed my perspective on that, because I've seen so many, not even just celebrity or public figures, but people I personally know that are with somebody of another race. Some of them making it work for them in some type of way. You know what I mean? They might be utilizing that and kind of utilizing that white privilege in order to move forth for black people. And I genuinely do care. And I'm like, I can never fix my lips. Like, it's niggas that's done more than me, women that's done more than me. I cannot fix my lips to say you're not pro-black.
I don't know how this gonna be taken, but we could use Brother Kanye as an example. Is Kanye pro-black? Do you think?
Well, he wasn't. He was with black women at the time that I think he was pro-black. I don't think he's pro-black now, from my opinion.
I think that's fair. That's fair.
So at that time, when he was dealing with black women, like, I mean, yeah. But I mean, that's a unique situation, like you said. Like, Kanye's not the average.
I feel like it's circumstantial, though.
I would still call Kanye pro-black.
To an extent, but it's just like, I feel like what people take out most of the way is just everything is just so black and white. Like, everybody takes out circumstantial evidence. Everything is based on circumstances. Yeah. Everything. Yeah, so your reason of ending up with a white person, or why you feel like that's a better mate for you than other reasons outside of recreation, outside of privilege, outside of different things, whatever reasons you have, that's subjective.
Right.
So how am I going to tell you, for example, my best friend, she's probably one of the most pro-black females I know.
Boy, 3 hours, bro.
Check it out. The father of her child, she just had her baby 2 days ago. The father of her child is a white man.
Oh.
See? Check it out.
With that asterisk.
Wow.
But check it out. The asterisk. Think
That's
about
crazy.
It. That wasn't something that she planned. That wasn't something that she wanted.
That's just went out my neck for that.
But she's not gonna end a potential. This is something that she wasn't even sure was gonna even be able to happen. Was having a family. Right. So what you gonna end up a life that's growing inside of you
but
over circumstantial
But
evidence?
it's like, for you to get to that point.
That's the first white man she's ever dated. Believe it or not.
It's still
circumstantial evidence.
She's
not pro-black. She's not pro-black because of this circumstance that came up.
That's fair.
To go with
but she said the opposite of what you just said now.
That's
to
how
me.
she used to view. I'm telling you. But
and this was what?
Think about it.
This was 2020 when we
had
that
talked
conversation.
About this. They were no longer in a relationship. They had dated before, but they weren't in a relationship. She has her views. That's not somebody she's marrying. Who she marries is her dude moving forward. But that's
big.
Think about
that's
it.
Big.
Circumstantial. You can't. Yeah, of course you can prevent pregnancy and all that, but when it comes up, if you end up pregnant, you end up pregnant. It's a pimp decision. But you're not a female. I don't.
But I'm just saying, I wouldn't
expect you to understand.
But I wouldn't mess with it. I wouldn't.
Yeah, I know. Like at this point in my life, here's how I am. Like, I know, like, pretty much anybody I deal with going forth is somebody I plan on probably being with, like, in a marriage or like long term. So I know a white woman or any other race is not gonna be that. So I'm not even gonna waste my time or her time of us getting that close when I know I don't have like no super future plans for it. So there's no accident that I feel can happen out of that. Now if this was like my early 20s when I was we wilding, we just having fun, we doing our spit. I probably wasn't even thinking about this as deep at that time. I think that's more possible. But once I have an adamant, feeling and perspective on it, like I just.
How old are you?
I'm 28.
Okay, you dating to marry, right?
You said what?
You're dating to marry,
right?
Settle
correct,
down.
correct.
Different. It's different right now. Me, I I've only had one real relationship that was 6 years. That ended 3 years ago or so. I'm dating right now. The next relationship I get into, I'm hoping it's not who I'm married to. Best believe, because I'm not gonna limit myself. Experiences with different people, whether short term or not. That's something since I was even in my first relationship that I was like, yeah, I want to date people for short amounts of time sometimes, so I don't limit myself and take away the experience of experiencing great times and connections with different people. It doesn't have to end in marriage. It doesn't have to end in children. It doesn't have to end in a family. It doesn't have to end in forever. Right. That's something that people rob themselves of. Is like, oh, well, it has to be forever. It has to be. Why not enjoy it for the moment?
But
you're at an age where that's different,
which
is fair. But it's
like black women do go hard on black men for dating outside.
We gonna save that for a whole nother day, bro. We do not have time. We gonna save that for a whole nother day, bro.
Lo and behold, I just feel like, as far as my best friend goes, and even just being a woman, things are circumstantial. Some women are pro-life, some women are pro-choice. I'm pro-choice.
Oh yeah, I'm not knocking her for keeping the baby.
No, I'm not either. But I'm just saying the aspect of.
If you would have had that conversation I had with her, you would understand.
Yeah, no, I'm feeling the energy.
Listen,
I'm feeling the energy.
If you were told a year before by doctors who are trying to give you a hysterectomy because you're a black woman and dealing with medical issues, right? Okay, so you're not taken seriously. You almost got a hysterectomy. You're getting told by doctors that you might not ever be able to have a family. A year later, things brighten up. You end up being with a dude outside your race for the first time. You having sex with
we're not advocating for like abortion. We're just saying how you got to that point.
But I'm listening to what I'm saying. I've had an abortion. I am all about it. I'm not saying we're not talking about that aspect of it. The aspect I'm talking about is circumstantial. Right. Everything is circumstantial. Before she got pregnant, she would never have a child with a white man. Absolutely not. That wasn't a choice.
If I would have asked her that.
But it's circumstantial. She would have told you the same thing.
When did she become pro-black, though? When did she have that conversation with you?
Bro, this was not too long. What? Like January. Like February. That was top of this year, bro. He trying to do the math. He like, hold up.
So either she wasn't pregnant or it was right before she got pregnant. But she had the relationship with them, sure. But she had to learn different things, and she still has struggles sometimes where it's like getting a connect for certain things. This is a southern white boy.
But I that's what I'm saying. Like, and I don't want to keep going in circles with this, but I explained all of this to her.
This isn't my situation to even try to fight for it. But ultimately, I feel like I know I'm probably coming off as defensive because y'all not understanding.
Yeah. No, I'm not like even talking down to her. No, I'm just shocked. Honestly, I'm just shocked. Like, whoa.
I feel like that's something that's taken out a lot of ways. The same thing with, for example, or extreme one, but also an example, victim shaming with rape. It's always, oh, what was she wearing? Where was she at? Was she drunk? What was she doing? Was she dancing on somebody? What was it? It's that whole thing of like, and I'm not saying it's an extreme example. Don't get me wrong.
Yeah, I'm trying to see the correlation.
No, extreme example, but the idea of it's circumstantial. Everything is circumstantial.
Well, all we're saying is that she was going hard on him about interracial relationships, and then she turned around and had
but circumstances changed, right?
Interracial
clearly,
that makes it
circumstantial. Oh, yeah, clearly.
That's my point.
But it's kind of like
that's a broad word, right? Like
we want to get the energy
and to put this out there, I wasn't even advocating like I want interracial relationships. Our specific conversation was actually what I just asked was, can you be pro-black and date outside of your race? And I was explaining to her examples of why I feel like that's extreme to say so. And she was giving her points of why she felt she was justified in feeling that way. And we had a good dialogue. It wasn't like cold, nothing. Like it was a great conversation that I still, clearly have memory of to this day. But for her, to hear that she had a white man's child, like,
that's like,
I mean, you gotta understand why that's shocking to me, and it's not even a bad way. It's just like, damn, like.
I'm just saying that that's where.
And it was quick, like that was top of this, top of 2020.
But I just feel like that's where just the general how humans process things, how society processes things. The circumstantial, mind you, I'm into forensics and stuff, so I'm all about evidence and different logic, evidence and arguments and different things that lead up to the solution and the conclusion. Circumstances make a difference. That goes with my whole last relationship was based on circumstances. Most people feel like I'm fucking retarded for half the shit I've done and half the decisions I've made when it comes to relationships with certain people. But it's like everything's circumstantial. If I was in a different circumstance, I wouldn't have done that.
Right.
If I had different roles to play, or if I had different cards handed to me, I wouldn't have done that.
I get what you're saying, but
I hear what you're saying too. I just don't.
It's like don't go hard and then do the.
Yeah, I mean, because I
kind of the same thing as going back to the tweets too, right? Because that's saying something beforehand and then changing how you view it later.
Over time.
That's true.
Over time.
But that was kind of quick.
Okay, sure. That's a quick turnaround, sure. Yeah. But that's her being pro-black wasn't something that just happened that time at that day that we talked. That has been something that was there for years. The turnaround may have been a little quick.
Yeah.
But circumstances happen quick. Like, just...
We got to bring her in and ask her if she's still pro-black.
Oh, we're going to have to do an online thing. We'll have a Zoom meeting for sure. I would love to have her weigh in for sure.
All right,
I'll set that up.
We'll put a button on this there.